Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
From Charlotte, North Carolina. Hello, Facebook friends, YouTube friends,
Instagram friends.
Instagram family, friends, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. My name is Chris, and this is
LJ.
LJ, hailing from Toronto,
The Great North.
Canada. Also have spent time in Dubai.
Yes.
Calgary.
Shoot, forgot about that.
The true sheep pen of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you're doing well wherever you are tuning in from. We're joining on. We're here. You're joining us for Midweek Mixtape. And what we're doing this morning is just talking about the sermon from this past weekend. We are in the series Bars and Battles, and so I'm one of our worship leaders here at church. LJ, what do you do?
I am a music director. Get the privilege of directing music for our 13 to 17 campuses. Over the microphone and calling shots and trying to keep up with our pastor, who has a almanac. Is that the right word? Almanac of musical songs. Plethora, yes. It's awesome.
Hey, hello from, I think we got some friends joining from Harrisburg, Virginia, Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Hello, we see you, Buffalo, New York, all the way up to Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Mm.
Welcome wherever you are, the Ukraine. Hello, Ukraine family.
Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Pennsylvania, right here.
Right, yeah.
Home of the Steelers. Shoot, this is going to be great.
Well, listen, hey, South Africa, we see you too. We're gonna jump in. So this sermon is week 3 of Bars and Battles. If you haven't had a chance yet to see it, eFam, hop online and see it there. Watch the sermon, and we're just gonna do a quick recap of what it was. So obviously, Bars and Battles, like I said, Pastor Stephen is walking us through the life of David and the Psalms. And so this week was from Psalm 57. LJ, you want to?
Verse 2 for sure. I cry out to God Most High, to God who will fulfill His purpose for me. I think we should read that again.
Do it. I
cry out to God Most High, to God who will fulfill His purpose for me.
God will fulfill His purpose for me. So he spent, this week's sermon was about that purpose, and he took the story from 1 Samuel 24, where David, at this point in his life, he'd already been crowned king, and Saul is the current king of Israel, and he's chasing David, and Saul finds himself in a cave. David and his men on the run from Saul are in the back of that cave, and the scripture says that David creeps up on Saul while he was using the restroom in the cave,
relieving
himself, and he creeps up, and he decides to cut a corner off of Saul's robe, and so the sermon this week is called "Cutting Corners." And I think it'd be great. LJ and I were recapping the sermon together, and I think it'd be great to start with this truth that Pastor kind of left us with. It's not important to me that I get there. It's important that I get there the right way. Right. It's not important that I get there. Wherever my destiny takes me, wherever my purpose or my calling is, it's not important just that I get there. It's so important that I get there the right way. And so, I think, David was a worshiper, obviously, and in his life, I think he made decisions early on that he decided not to cut corners. We see in David's life, the Samuel came and crowned David king, and he stayed in the sheep pen tending sheep. He stayed mending fences even after he was crowned king. He made a decision to not just bypass or try to shortcut the system and jump right to being king. He was crowned king, and he still made a decision to take cheese and bread to the soldiers who were out in battle. And so David found himself, I think, as a worshiper, understanding that truth, that you can't just jump straight to your destiny and jump straight to maybe what you feel like your ultimate purpose is. There's a way to get there that is right. There's a way to get there, and it is going to take time. And the process really, Pastor's also told us this in the past, the process really is the point. Right. And so LJ, you want to...
I think one of the major things the pastor was saying on Sunday was not like this. So oftentimes we have a promise from God, and then we try and, in our own flesh, make that promise happen. And when we do that, when we get the result, we have to maintain the result. Right. And it would have been something that God wanted to do, but we put our hand and gotten all in the mess, and we've messed it up. And so I think that learning that principle and just remembering to always never take a shortcut. Right. Never compromise on the shortcut. Never compromise your integrity while you're trying to get to a certain position. God has it for you, so you don't have to work up for it. You don't have to try and push yourself forward through it. Let him do it in his time. Yeah. So that you build the right character, so that when you get the promise, you have the character to maintain the promise.
So what, like a year and a half ago with you, right? You probably maybe 2 years, I don't remember now. You sent in a video to join, to just see if you could, be a part of the worship ministry here. LJ sent this video in, and he's at a keyboard in his house. Come to find out, 6 months later or so, we reach out, and your wife...
6 months? 18 months.
Okay. It was a while.
Yeah, it was a while. It was a good season.
He was in the pen for a while. Yeah. So your wife would say, y'all were in Calgary at that point, and your wife said that you'd be watching the sermons at Elevation online. You're in Canada at this point,
Calgary, Alberta.
not a part of the church, right? Because we don't have a church there, a campus there yet. And you'd watch the sermons, have your keyboard out, and you'd be playing along to the sermon. Yeah, staying in the pen.
It was weird because it was just at some point where the messages were so cultivating and the worship was so good that I didn't really have a church, so that would be my church. I would go and I would play just outside of our kitchen and play the songs and play along and be playing along with Pastor as he was preaching. I guess envisioning, dreaming of the day that it would happen. But I often go back to those sheep pen moments. And you remember when Pastor preached that sermon, putting your passion in its place. It kind of reminds me every time we take the platform or every time we go and do something that keeping that spot always fresh in the forefront of your mind.
It's important.
Where you learn how to play, where you learn how to hear God's voice, where you learn how to take care of what he entrusted you with. It might not have been MDing. It might just have been being a good husband, being a good father. So I think that the pen is somewhere we got to visit almost daily. Yeah. Does that make sense?
And that, obviously what we do is worship, and I think so often we can kind of limit what worship is to, the hour on Sunday morning, or limit, it to the album that's playing in our car. And obviously worship is so much more encompassing than that. And, Romans 12:1, says, offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to the Lord. This is your spiritual act of worship. And what you were doing in those moments, and I think us, this word from this weekend, this about purpose and God fulfilling this call, this calling on our lives. Worship is truly like taking those moments when no one is seeing what you're doing, right? And no one has any idea that you're in your den, held up in an apartment, playing along. But now you find yourself, several years later, in this position where you're helping lead several, musicians on our team. And lead our church every single weekend, and how important it is. So wherever you find yourself today, at school, and you're tempted to cut corners somehow on a test, or you're tempted to cut corners at work on a project that you're working on. You can't. You certainly could do that, but you can't bypass the system or skirt the system. Find a way to cut the corner, and I think ultimately get the result that you want in the end. You can get a result, but it's not going to get you where you really want to be at the end of it all. And I think you can find a way to do that. You certainly can by to just realize and understand your spiritual act of worship is you just deciding, hey, this this relationship that I have at work with this person who kind of rubs me the wrong way, that I have a difficult time, getting along with. I'm gonna, not. I'm gonna choose to understand like the way I interact is a spiritual act of worship, and I'm not going to. I want to help someone else fulfill their calling on their life, or fulfill God's calling on their life.
For sure.
Through helping them see that. Anything else, LJ?
I mean, do we hit guard the promise?
Kind of,
I mean,
but yeah, going in.
That's the one that just makes me think that I might have a promise from God, or I do have a promise from God. It is my responsibility to guard that with my whole heart, and really, in guarding it. And I think one of the big things in guarding it is my integrity. So the wholeness, or the way that I interact. Am I true to myself? Am I true to God? Am I abiding by His principles to obtain that promise? Because if not, you'll never really get the fullness of it. And you can almost see, you'll default.
Right.
Almost like, you look at Saul's life, he defaulted. He had the promise, you're going to be king. He was crowned king.
Yeah.
But he defaulted that by not guarding that promise, and so it went to David. So, I mean, it's just a constant reminding of yourself that what we do, what we're entrusted with by God is so important.
Yeah.
You have to guard it with integrity, guard it with your actions and your decisions that you make. And, it's not about being perfect, but it is having this, how do I put it? This Jesus at the center.
Right.
Of all things that I do, Him guiding me through so that I can maintain this promise.
Yeah.
How have you maintained that promise you've been in this game a long time?
I mean, I think, I've been here at the church for 10 years, and I think it has been understanding the value of just staying put and stacking days, as we've said, and really understanding that the platform isn't the greatest part. It is quite a privilege, but it's certainly, the pen really is where everything kind of takes place.
So
and
good.
Where you add depth and value, I think, to the ministry and certainly into my life. So thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Hopping on wherever you're from. Don't forget, you can tune in at any point, eFam, to see the sermon from this past weekend.
Hey, Chris, it's Wednesday.
It is Wednesday.
What does that mean?
That means also, if you're in the Charlotte area,
We've got some midweeks.
We do have some midweek. Let's see, Concord, UC,
Blakeney.
Yeah, hop in at Blakeney, Matthews now.
Oh yes, sir.
Matthews campus and Uptown. Yes. Uptown. So come to a midweek experience if you're here in the Charlotte area. Live worship, and preaching from this past weekend, and we'll see you again this coming weekend as well.
Wednesday.